Hi everyone, Dr. Omid Termechi here again. The last video we showed how you can bring the DICOM file into the Blue Sky Planner and process it as a planning software does. And this video now I'm dedicating it to bringing the STL file and try to match the STL file into our and stitch it into our CBCT. So in order to go ahead and bring the STL file, you come up here to the file and you go down to import STL model. When you go down to import STL model, this just happened to, because I've been working on this, so I happened to come up on the patient's name. So here is the PAT STL file. I click on it. I check to see if this is the same patient. Yes, I can go ahead and see this is the same patient. It looks the same as the CBCT, and then I click OK. Once you click OK, the program will create two windows. On the right side you have a panoramic view, and on the left side you have your STL file. Now there are two ways you could go ahead and stitch these two information together. One is before you even get started, just indicate exactly what jaw you're working on. So in this case, it automatically as a default comes as a mandible, so we are working on a mandible. Otherwise, if you're working on a maxilla, just make sure that you click the maxillary button, because otherwise your stitch will be a little confused and not recognizing if you're working on a mandible. It kind of doesn't work, and then you have to X that surface out and then redo the process again in order to create an accurate stitch. Now Blue Sky Bio right now has two ways that you can go ahead and stitch. One is to stitch the model automatically, where the computer kind of generates your stitch automatically by itself, recognizes these teeth and try to match it to as well as it can to this whatever you have on a panoramic view. But I don't necessarily recommend on somebody like this. Generally speaking, to get a very good accurate stitch, you need to make sure that you have 7 points at least on both of them. In this particular case we have only 5 because there's only 5 teeth in here, and I can accurately really stitch my models well. Even I have to say up to 3 teeth. If there are 3 teeth still left, you will be able to go ahead and get a good stitch, as long as you don't have too much scatter going on. If those guys are not crowns and they're not implants, then you are able to stitch them well. In this particular case we don't have any crown, they're all natural teeth, as you can see on a panoramic view, and we have a fractured tooth in this area, which kind of indicates here, which is a good point because I'm going to show you how this is going to help us a little bit identify how well we have stitched our two information. So I would suggest that when you don't have enough teeth, that you want to go ahead and stitch this manually. And the way to stitch this manually, you come back over here and says point base alignment. Press shift and select a matching teeth in a panoramic view and on an important model. So the important model is here, panoramic view is here. So as it says, and it tells you, you press shift. As you press shift, take a look at my cursor. My cursor turns to a plus sign. I let it go, it goes back to the cursor. I click on it, it turns to a plus sign. So once I have it on a plus sign, that means I have activated my cursor, and I try to go ahead and now mark my locations. And the way you mark it, you basically mark each teeth and you click on them and a button shows up. Now I actually, excuse me, I want to see these teeth a little bit better, so I let go of my shift and I rotate the model with the left mouse button. Then I press shift again and I mark this guy and I mark this guy. Once I'm done marking my STL files, all the teeth that I have, generally speaking, if you have more teeth, you could go every other tooth, basically. But in this particular case, because we don't have so many teeth, I'm picking every single one. Then you could maximize your image and move it down. One other thing I want to tell you, that when you're working on a blue sky planner, try to not work with your pad on your laptop. Try to connect with a mouse, because there are a lot of movements that you need to do that makes it very difficult to actually try to accomplish that with your pad on your computer. So having said that, in order to maximize this image, I click down on my scroll button on my mouse and I bring it, I apologize, in order to move the image, I press down on my scroll button and then I can basically move the image in its window. Okay, if I want to maximize, I right click on my mouse and push away the mouse away from myself, and it maximizes. When I bring it closer to myself, it goes back and it minimizes. So that's how you maximize, minimize your images and how you move them. Okay, so now that we have picked these 5 points on the STL file, we want to pick 5 points on our CBCT. So again, press shift, you activate your mouse, and then you click on each teeth. 1, 2, 3, 4, and 5. Okay, so once you have all 5 of them marked, then you could go ahead and say align. At this point, it takes a few minutes for the computer to actually generate the stitch and put them together, so don't get nervous, it's still not complete. Okay, so now we have a stitch. So let's verify our stitch to see if it's good. If you have a stitch that you can see basically part of your CBCT, part of your STL file, it's going to show up like this. You can see some green, some white. So that is a good stitch. Okay, so you come over here and see, and you can follow this path, and I can actually scroll down on different images, and I want to show you what I said to you about a fractured tooth. Maybe this slice would be a good slice. Let me maximize it. You could see how the stitch, it basically went down, and as you can see over here, it basically goes down here, and the computer recognizes that this tooth is not complete. If, for example, this stitch was coming up here and you're looking at this outline of your STL file coming up here, then you know something is not right. But you could see how nicely it's sitting on the incisal edges of each teeth. Okay, and you could scroll down on your image basically and try to see if that is accurate. So this to me looks like an accurate stitch, and once I know that, I press OK, and now we have stitched our CBCT to our STL file. Okay, so that's the video for the stitching of the CBCT to STL file. Thank you very much for watching, and I will see you next time. Bye.